It's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen? I'm on my slides. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So for this children's literature for science, I chose the book Fly Guy Presents Weather. And the standards that align with this book is this is for I chose third grade. So these are the third grade standards in the disciplinary core idea, which is ES2D weather and climates for the first and the second, and also the ESS3B for natural hazards. So for my lesson, what I would do, start them off with a KWL chart because this is a topic that they could have learned in kindergarten.
Mhm.
I know that my daughter, she learned about weather in kindergarten, so they can apply what they know, and I could not acknowledge, but determine their knowledge and experience based on this chart. I would also finish the lesson with column L. And for not vision, for virtual learning, I would use Jamboard or Padlet. So this is the book. It's called Fly Guy Presents Weather, and it's by Ted Arnold. I chose this for third grade. You can use this book for first grade to third grade. So I thought this was an appropriate book to choose for this grade level. And I found this read aloud on YouTube. So if you guys want the link, I can give you the link to it if you want to check it out. And yes, this I didn't have any physical copy of the book or any electronic, so I read this book through this read aloud. And what I appreciate about this book is the visual. So it's nonfiction because it's very informal and it's talking about the weather and the climate and the types of job like a meteorologist. And with this character and a friend, it does look a little nonfiction, but it's not. But it does put in like a great appeal, a visual appeal for the kids to stay engaged because it is a really informal book. So I'll show you some info or pictures, for example. The book starts off with Buzz. This boy is Buzz, and the fly next to him is his friend Fly Guy, and they just go through a weather station, starting off with the topic weather and climate. So as you go forward, it shows pictures of nonfiction pictures with them as if they're walking through a museum, and it's giving them a lot of great information about the weather and how weather changes. And I like that they have parentheses of how to pronounce the words because this is third grade and there is vocabulary in there that's kind of advanced for them, like atmosphere or there's other words in there too. Just move forward. And I like that. I like this one because it does give them the types of clouds, and the type of clouds can help them predict the weather. Or a word like this, cumulon, sorry, cumulonimbus. Yeah. So this is how they're able to make out the words, and that's what I appreciate about this book as well. And I like that the pictures are in picture frames that are illustrated. And on the side, Buzz and Fly Guy is actually having conversations about what's on the text as well, which is, a little interaction within the characters and what the information is saying, which the kids can really interact with and, connect to. Like this one, he says, these clouds look like cotton candy. And so Fly Guy takes it out and eats it like cotton candy. And so there's like jobs that they could want to be one day that I like in this story, meteorologist. And I do have something to show them afterwards, after going through this section. Oh, and this is like another example of the book of the informal text, but with pictures in it to have that interaction. And the reason why I put this one in is because it's like a weather journal that Buzz is keeping. So I wanted to, apply that to a lesson as well. Oh, and this is another topic on natural hazards that's connected to the standards as well. And so I would show them this video that I also found on YouTube, but I'm not gonna show it because I don't want to take up too much time. But if you want to go ahead and watch this video on YouTube on your free time, it's called Be a Weather Watcher.
I'm gonna provide the link that you gave me so that everybody can use it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on, this is a little lesson that I would incorporate into the book. I would do it weekly because it is a lot of information that the kids would, intake. The first week would start off with the weather, and I would have them do the same thing as a video that I would show them, which is starting a weather journal to write the weather. They can draw what they see and get the temperature. So nowadays there's a phone weather app. They can just look it up, or they can actually go outside and be hands on and use a thermometer. The second week, I would have them collect another type of data that they could, compare and contrast, and they would create a line graph to show that representation. And the third week would be creating an hypothesis. And I found this article on Science Journal for Kids and Teens, and I got this from Dr. James last week. And I just went on there, and there's this article they can read about what humans can do to help stop climate change. And I would have them create an I hypothesis to end this session or this unit. For integrated standards, I would also use the social studies standards for third grade, which is historical inquiry. And they would investigate the history of communities over time using level appropriate primary sources. So I would have them go on timeanddate.com and find anywhere in the world during a certain time and observe that that week's worth of information. And then I would have them compare the same thing, like current weather patterns with this data. I would also have them research development made during that time to see if that development had an effect or cause during that time. And that is it.
Very nice. Does anybody have any questions for Renessa? So you mentioned an app for the weather. So this is actually you can see that's the sky cover in Makakilo. That's at Dr. James's house, and it says what the temperature is. And it gives the current wind. There was a gust there at their house of 31 miles per hour. The current wind is 25.9. Gives the millibars, it gives the humidity, it gives how much rain there's been, it gives a graph to show the temperature change. And you can even go back and you can look at videos of the weather for, like, here's yesterday's weather sent from sunrise all the way to, you'll see the sun go down there in just a minute. It gives the temperature as the day goes. So their high temperature up there at Makakilo is 80. So just kind of I have 4 different weather apps. I even have Hawaii News Now's weather app on mine. This is the one that I use almost all the time, and it's got Kapolei. But you can get, these are really good things. And if I'm going to try to get a few more, but what I've done in the past is I've given students the same weather station that Dr. James has, and then they can use it during their student teaching or during their class so that they can do something like this with their students. So setting up a weather station where the students can actually have it on campus. So if you are interested in that next semester and you're in a place where you're doing weather with students, let me know because I'd be happy to share that with you. So thank you. Excellent. Kiani?
Okay, let me just go ahead and share my screen. If I can open this. Okay, can everyone see this?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so for my children's literature for science instruction, I decided to go with Reproduction in Plants by Julie Lundgren. I found this book on Get Epic, and I decided to go with this one because currently I am planning a math science integrated lesson on plants for my first graders. So I thought this was a really great start to find some ideas. So this is what the cover looks like on Get Epic, and then this is a little blurb from the book. It says, the life cycle of a plant is explained, as well as how different plants use different ways to reproduce. I put my target audience as, I put my target audience as grades 1 to 3, but you can also use this book for 4th and 5th as well, because it is a little bit more on the wordy side and there's a lot of big vocabulary words in there, but I really did like it for 1st grade because of the pictures and the visual examples. The NGSS standards that I went with for this is 1-LS1-1, from molecules to organisms, structures and processes. Students will use materials to design a solution to a human problem by mimicking how plants and or animals use their external parts to help them survive, grow, and meet their needs. So basically like parts of the plant and like the things that they need to grow, which are water and sunlight. I also chose 1-LS3-1, heredity, inheritance, and variation of traits. Students will make observations to construct an evidence-based account that young plants and animals are like, but not exactly like their parents. So this could be, in plants, it could be the way that they grow and the way that they, I don't want to say die, but basically that's what it is. And also with animals too, their needs are different from their parents' needs. And so with plants, usually you take more care of them when they are sprouting as opposed to when they're already in bloom. So I thought that was a really great way to use this book. Some real world connections that I decided to make with this book was gardening. So students can see how the plants grow. Farm to table is also a really good example that I liked because we can share with the students how they get their food, especially fruits and vegetables, especially those that are locally grown. And everyday living, I thought this was a great way to use comparing and contrasting how humans and plants are alike, but also different in the things that we need to survive. So to incorporate this into a classroom, I did this one for 1st grade. I decided to go with a class garden. This can be done in class or even virtually. There are simulated plant growers that I've seen online, which are really cool. Students can plant seeds, care for the plants by giving them water and sunlight. And with each week that goes by, I would have the students observe how they grow. So measurements, if there's any new leaves or any new flowers or anything like that. And this is the part of the book that I would use to help these students understand the parts of a plant. And the questions that I would ask to engage them or have them give me a deeper understanding of what they know is, what do plants need to grow and how do plants grow? I really liked this idea of the roots, because I feel like in a lot of classrooms, most of the time we talk about what they need to grow, but not really how they start growing. So this is a really great visual of the roots take place in the soil, and that's how they get pushed up to out of the ground, and they use light energy but give off oxygen, and we provide them with carbon dioxide. So really great way. For second grade, I wanted to focus more on the life cycle, kind of building upon that knowledge of the basic needs and caring for a plant. By doing this, we can talk about the animals and insects that help plants to reproduce. One of the examples would be bees. So here it says, as bats, birds, and insects feed, pollen sticks to their bodies. It brushes off on the next flower, helping the process of pollination. So I thought that was a really good way to introduce that life cycle to them. We can also talk about the longevity of plants, how some plants last longer than others, depending on their species or type. So for example, sunflowers only last for a year, whereas apple trees can last up to 3 years. We can also talk about different plant needs. So as they get older, they start to realize with this book that not all plants actually need sunlight. Like this saguaro cactus, they bloom at night. So it's really interesting for the students to see like not all plants are the same, and that they all need different things to survive. So questions to ask to engage them would be, what are some animals or insects that help plants grow, and do all plants need the same things? So for grade 3, a classroom incorporation would be compare and contrast, building upon the knowledge that they've learned in first grade and second grade, and hopefully by this time they know that not all plants need the same things. We can talk about our needs versus plant needs, the similarities and differences. We can ask questions like, how are we like plants, and do humans and plants need the same things to survive? So do we need water the way that plants need water? What kind of food do we need? How is our food different from the food that plants need? Do we need as much sunlight as plants need? All those kinds of things that really just get them thinking about their survival skills, I want to say, versus a plant's survival skills. Yeah. And that is it. Thank you.
Anybody have any quick questions for her? Okay, honey. Hearing none. Michelle.
Okay, let me share my screen. Maybe this one. Okay. Okay, is it sure you can see? Okay, let me present. Okay, then is it loading? Okay, there we go. So the book that I chose is called Demons of the Deep. So there we go. So it's like that. I have the physical book right here, if you can see it. But here's like a better way that you can see it on there. Just a picture of it. So is it a standard? So it's a book about animals that live in the deep ocean, And I picked this because my second favorite science subject is marine biology. So I thought this one would be a really cool one to use. So I found a bunch of different, well, I searched up the standards and then I found like a lot of these can apply to this at different grade levels. So for the first one, for kindergarten, is to use a model to represent the relationship between the needs of different plants and animals, including humans and the places they live. So for an activity for that, I was thinking of making like a group project where they would make like a little, what is that called? Uh, like a little mini biome kind of diorama. And since it's like for kids, it'd be just a lot easier for them to just like, give them like a bowl. And since it's underwater, right? Like what are the things that are needed for like a fish to live in that type of environment kind of thing? Or for second grade, which would be make observations of plants and animals to compare the diversity of life in different habitats. So obviously these are for specifically animals that live in the deep ocean. So I would introduce this book to them, and then since this is all about it has each section is all about one specific animal that lives in that area, which I can read a little bit afterwards. But I would introduce it as a like a research type project, which was inspired by um, my last placement, which last semester, which I was in second grade, and they did a research project where they had to find a different biome and then pick an animal from that biome and then create a presentation about that specific animal and then teach it to their classmates. So I thought, oh, perfect, because since it was second grade, I've already seen it happen because I observed it last semester and then I watched their presentations and how they did it. Then I could connect it similar to this one, but have it more focused on like, yeah, on sea animals and things like that. Another standard would be for third grade. So it says, make a claim about the merit of solution to a problem caused when the environment changes and the type of plants and animals that live there may change. So a lot of animals evolve to live in such a deep ocean, in the such deep waters and stuff, right? As it's shown here. And so I would use this as like a reference for them to be like a springboard. So it's like, oh, if deep, I don't like oceans that live in animals that live in the deep ocean evolve to be like this, how is it, or like what are some other examples in different environments that animals have evolved so they can live in there, kind of thing. It's just like this would be the beginning, and then again more like a research thing where they can choose, they instead of being regulated to just the ocean and deep sea, then they can go choose whatever one that they would like. And then kind of similar to with the fourth grade one, which is construct an argument that plants and animals have internal and external structures that function to support survival, growth, behavior, reproduction. So since it's the more what is that called? Older students, then the I feel like it would be a good way to make a field trip kind of thing to like the zoo or the aquarium, and then we can use that as a like when we go back outside, instead of using like computers and books and information, that's one way, but then it's like they can get try and find resources that will let them manipulate things to show like, oh, so animals have this thing, this structure to help them survive, and they can actually see it in person, like right up close. Like if we were to go to like the aquarium or something, right, then they have it like right in front of them, like, oh, that's how. Plus on top of that, the people at the aquarium have like another resource besides myself in teaching them about all this new information. So it's more of a fun like activity to go outside of the classroom. And so the connection, so again, I would do would be like, you know this book is full of real life or photos of like animals that live in the ocean. If you can like see it, hopefully it's picking up very well. It's mostly, I'd say like about 80% of the book is filled with actual pictures of the animals. So it's a really easy way for them to show them like, oh no, it's not just an interpretation of what the animals are. This is actually what they look like in the water. And since we probably won't be able to see them up close anytime soon because we're not submarine divers or any scientists like that, this would be like the closest one where it'd be like, oh look, this is what a frilled shark looks like, and look at it, it looks so weird, doesn't it, kind of thing. And then I really like how in this book there's different sections. So like here this is like the first one where it has like a section of discussion questions that you can have with the class. So it's like, why should humans explore the deepest layers of the sea? What dangers do sea creatures confront in the deepest layers of the ocean? What types of adaptations help them survive? So I would have them have a discussion about these kinds of things, like their opinions on why do you think we should even go down there if it's so dark and it's so scary? Why? Right? Or like where is this? Where did they get their all these different animals get their names? So in this book, I think some of them have I can't find it right now, but they have the one that they're known for, the name that they're known for, and the scientific name, I believe, somewhere in here. There's a lot. I can't find an example off the top of my head, but it'd be more they can get more what is it called? Huh. I keep thinking of, or this one has, okay, this is a better example of what I'm trying to say. So there's this thing called the census spec. So it's like, it's talks about, if you can see, it has like a chart. And then it says the census received $650 million in funding to explore the oceans. The goal was to answer 3 questions. What used to live in the ocean, what lives in the oceans now, and what will live in the oceans in the future? The question seems simple, but finding the answers was not. It took 2,700 scientists to conduct their research over 10 years, and they're still learning more. So you can see, like, since it's broken down into graphs, I can integrate math also into this because it has like numbers and stuff as by each section. So like this one is if one fish is worth like 400 and there's like a bunch of them. So you can use like, try to find out how much is that equal to when instead of like, whatever is converted in the graph. Uh, so it's about, I would say it's about a 4th or 5th grade level, but again, you can use it for any other. I just say like it's more easier on a 4th or 5th grade level because it seems like the information seems more, I guess, harder. Like you can easily read it and then like simplify it for a younger audience. But if you want to read it like straight, then it'd be better for 4th or 5th grade, in my opinion. It's very informational. It's like all about the different animals and things like that. So I what I like is that it has real photos of the animals, quick trivia facts, which like like for this giant isopod, there's like a little thing right here that you can just get like a little quick fact about it. That's like there's more the main section right here, and then there's just another quick thing on top of that. It has a bunch of different drawings. So like this one is not this one. Where's the other? I bookmarked it. Where is it? Where's a bigger one? Where is it? Okay, well this one's like a this is like a history thing where it talked about how people viewed the ocean long before scientists, like their hypothesis and like what they thought, like sea monsters kind of thing before in the past. So it has like this drawing interpretation of what people thought back then of how the ocean was and how scary it was. Um, it says it was copyrighted 2013, so it's pretty recent. It's like 8 years old right now. So I know like I like how it's pretty up to date with what the information is in here. Yes, it's very factual, so it's not really like inclusive because it's really just facts, facts, facts kind of thing. There's no story. It's more just like I guess an encyclopedia of animals that live in this environment. And then there was a bunch of activities in the back, but this was the only one that sadly still works. So I tried looking through each one. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, and only one of them is still available. So this one I picked mainly by I guess I can I is it show it's probably not. Why am I just screen turn? Is it showing the one that I picked or is it still showing the thing? It's the one I picked. Okay, the link, right? Okay. So this one has so it talks about um bioluminescence. So a lot of animals in that deep ocean have this. So this would be like a next step kind of thing, where if you want to know more about these kinds of chemical reactions in the animals, then this would be another step where you can go find more information on how exactly it works, other pictures of animals that have this example, like look at this, this is a really pretty picture, but like another one on top of that, so you can have like another visual, and then there's a video somewhere in here I remember seeing. Where is it? Oh yeah, right here. See, look, there's more like links to like other stuff. See, like there's video of bioluminescence, or another article on bioluminescence. So it's a good, I guess, it's not for only deep sea animals, but it's just another aspect of them that will help you if you want to go further, like if a student wants to go further, or like, you know, you want to expand more from this book to go talk more about this subject, and this would be just a good place to do that. And is that the last one? I think this is the last one. Yeah, this is the last slide. So yep, I'm finished.
So does anybody have any questions for Michelle? So I have a quick comment for you. You mentioned going to the aquarium, and I'm not positive. I'd have to look back at the announcements that I sent you, but I believe that there will be in the spring sometime an opportunity to have professional development and go probably virtual now, but it might be available. It will be definitely when you guys do your student teaching, and I'll try to make sure that you get it. But my students last semester, they were able to go to do a virtual workshop with the aquarium. And then in previous semesters, we've actually visited the aquarium on a Saturday, very small group, like 15, 20 people. And you get 4 hours there and get the behind the scenes experience and how to use it for teaching. And then we also went out to Coconut Island over on the Kaneohe side. And so it was an opportunity to really play with literally play with some of the critters too. So it was cool. So hopefully that'll be available for you, but nicely done. Let's see, a couple of, there was comments. Good. I'm glad you see that. Alina is not able to join us. JC, it looks like you're up.
Okay, let me share my screen. Can everyone see? Okay. Okay, so for my book, I went a different route. I chose a fiction book. It's Hoot by Carl Hiaasen. I don't know how to say, how to pronounce his name exactly, but
I think it's Hyacinth.
Hyacinth. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so I was actually talking with my mentor, and I asked him if he had any recommendations, and he said that he used this book before as it was like language arts, but then he added science into it. It's kind of an old book. I remember reading it when I was in middle school, but I think it's a really good book. So yeah, it's a fiction book. It's like a mystery novel. It takes place in Florida. So this boy, Roy, he moves to Florida, and then he makes some quirky friends, and they join like this group effort to stop construction of a restaurant. It's like a pancake house. And they want to stop it because there's actually a colony of these endangered burrowing owls on the construction site. The NGSS standards I chose, the first one was about ecosystems. So it's construct an argument supported by empirical evidence that changes to physical or biological components of an ecosystem affects populations. And then I chose the Earth and Human Activity one, applies scientific principles to design a method for monitoring and minimizing a human impact on the environment. So I would do this with 6th grade. The standards are like, I was reading through the standards and it was hard for me to pick, but I asked my mentor for help and he chose these ones for me. So for the lesson that he used was actually a scholastic one. It's basically, they would read the story Hoot as like an introduction, and then it would be like a persuasive letter writing. So there's actually like multiple
letters that are written in the book. Like I think there's one where Roy writes to his friend, like apologizing to her. But this would be a good one for during 6th grade, they're doing like persuasive writing and argumentative writing. So basically they would write like a letter after conducting some research about endangered animals. And they would just explain why like protecting the environments is important. And actually, after that, I wanted them to do some sort of thing with like researching different methods of how we monitor human impact on the environment, like how we like control pesticides or choose where to build things like urban development sort of things. So they would pretty much research those methods and they would talk about how they can improve it. So it would be, the letter writing is like the language arts integrated with the science. And then the method would be pretty much like the NGSS. They would just explore and they would come up with their own methods and then they would like share it with the class. That's it.
Nice job. So Carl Hyson has written, he also is a columnist for a paper in Florida. And he's written, I don't know how many, but at least a dozen rather raunchy adult noir mystery novels like Sick Puppy and things like that, which I've read all of them. My mother got me interested in reading his stuff, but the book that my son read, Hoot, and there's another one that he did too that I think the kid in Hoot came from Montana because I think that was why we had it, because we lived in Montana at the time. But Hyacin also wrote several books about Disney World and how it's very interesting because the Hoot stuff while it's fiction, it's based on a lot of things that have really happened. And so when you think about Disney World, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, they basically drained the swamp in Florida, and they have no mosquitoes. They've pretty much got the snakes under control, and with the exception of an alligator taking a kid now and then, they've got that under control too. So the impact on Florida has been pretty monumental. So interesting, very interesting. I'm glad you chose that, JC. It's very much, it's appropriate to have your kids doing something like that, persuasive writing as well. And it is hard with middle school to pick out the ideal standards, I think. And you're in an interesting world because the elementary is considered, like, in some parts of the world, it's considered K8, other parts of the world it's K5, and middle school is 5th through 9th in a lot of places. So there's a lot of overlap. So you can use elementary or middle level, depending on where you are. And you'll get to know your kids, so you'll be able to pick different ones. But thank you, that was good. I guess Nicole, that means you're it.
Okay, so for this assignment, I chose the book called Into the Crater of Doom. And this is kind of what the cover page looks like for this one. And so some information about the book. The author is Kevin Kurtz and the illustrator is Alice Beacon. And the release date, it came out in about late 2019, so it's pretty current and up to date. And the audience is from grades 3 to 5 or ages 7 to 11. It kind of has a little bit of academic language and kind of complex concepts. So it's a little bit for upper elementary. And the genre is nonfiction science. And summary, it introduces students to the asteroid impact that happened 66 million years ago that caused many species to go extinct. And it's also it kind of talks more about like what scientists and researchers do to help us learn more about the mass extinction and the Chicxulub crater, which is kind of where the impact was, where they found it. And the final pages of the book kind of explain the asteroid impact and the crater a little bit more in an academic format, with real images from Kirk's expedition. So this is some examples of the visuals. So they have a little bit of these kind of character looking things, and it kind of has a little bit of like information. It's kind of, these ones have not so much complex like concepts in them or like the academic languages. This is, I think, kind of more fun images that they kind of put in the beginning of the book just to give students like a good foundation of understanding. And then they get in later to this kind of format where they have more, it looks more like a textbook and more academic and real life pictures of like the asteroids and the Chicxulub crater. And then, so for the standards, I found standards for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade for biological evolution, Earth's place in the universe. And at the bottom of each of them, I put kind of like the concepts that could be relevant for like lesson concepts. So if you're doing something with fossil organisms or natural systems, and then for the bottom one, Earth's history, which I think could also fit in with like a social studies integrated lesson. And here are more 4th grade ones and 5th grade. So there's like earthquakes, mountain ranges, natural hazards, cause and effect, and interactions with Earth's major systems and the Earth's processes. And so some lesson ideas that I thought of that would fit in well with this book would be discussing Earth's evolution and research on the evolution of animals and planets after the impact, and discussing the importance and purpose of scientific research and explorations. And hopefully that would also encourage students to kind of maybe like feel like they can become scientists and see more about what they kind of do. And then research on natural hazards and discussing cause and effect. And so the book is actually inspired from the expedition that Kevin Kurtz, the author, went on in 2016. And so something that could be fun to share with the students are like images that he posted on his blog that he wrote throughout his time at the crater. So it's dated in 2016. So while he was there, he was writing a bunch of blog posts about his experience like each day or every week, which was really fun to read. And inside each of the blog posts are a bunch of images. And so I thought that could be fun to share with students and they can look through that. And so my critique of the book would be that I would recommend it more for upper elementary level students, as like the language and the context of the content of the book requires some understanding of complex concepts. But the visuals were enough, I think, to guide students through the book, even if they don't understand some of those concepts. And then the visuals are really nice and aesthetically pleasing and detailed. And the most interesting part of it, was the fact that there was, it was based on the expedition that he went. And you can go in more in depth about the expedition through his blogs. And yes, that's all I had for that.
So Nicole, thank you. Got a question for you.
Okay.
I noticed it says School of Rock, and that is not the movie School of Rock. It is actually an opportunity for teachers to go to sea and do research on the Jody's Resolution, which is a giant drilling ship. And I would have was he, Kurtz, then a teacher that was experiencing that?
He was, I believe.
Yeah, so this is an opportunity that's available for you as well. So you guys need to realize that as teachers, I say this, I've said this before, I'm sure, but you have to realize that you get to do things that mere mortals only dream about. Okay, not only do you get to mess with little kids' heads and make them, future, presidents and things like that, you have opportunities to do things that most people never even dream of. Remember when we had Art and Ren were there and they talked about Teacher in Space. You have an opportunity to do that. You can do School of Rock, that they actually every year they struggle to find teachers, particularly elementary teachers, that would be willing to take a month out of their life to go and be on a drilling expedition and keep a blog and share the blog with students back in the real world. So that's part of what Kurtz did. That's how it started. And then he got this great book out of it too. So this is an opportunity. When NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, that goes out from here at Pearl Harbor, they go up into the Northwest Hawaiian Islands. So if you happen to be Hawaiian as well, you have an ability to go up. They go up twice a year to get material, you know, from the plastic, the North Pacific Gyre, all the great garbage patch. They go up and they clean the islands off and the islets and the atolls, as well as do counts of biology. They look at the albatross. They do all kinds of things like that as well. If you are, I mean, you don't have to be Hawaiian, but being Hawaiian gives you a leg up on being able to go to the Northwest Hawaiian Islands. That's just something that you should think about. If you're not Hawaiian, but you're like, and you're not like me, but let's say that you aren't Hawaiian, you can still go on Teacher at Sea. I went to the Marshall Islands. I spent 2.5 months actually over the summer at sea in 1998. And then again, I went to Apia in Samoa in 2010. So I spent a month at that time. So there's cruises all over the world as Teacher at Sea, but the ones to Northwest Hawaiian Islands would be the one. That's kind of the one I really want to do, but I've already been told that I have essentially no chance to do that, which is, I get it. But there's also the Polar Trek program, which gives teachers an opportunity to go places like Greenland and Iceland and Alaska and Antarctica. And so I would encourage you, when you've been teaching 3, 4, 5 years, to really, I mean, you may have kid issues, you may have, you know, significant other issues, you may have pets that need somebody to take care of them. But if you really want to have one of these life-changing experiences, I would encourage you to take a look at that kind of stuff, because it's pretty obvious that Kurtz's experience was fairly life-changing for him. And so you have that opportunity. So it'd be great. I mean, I always, anytime that these things come up with me, I try to jump on it, because even though I'm not any better teacher than almost everybody that applies for these things, I took the step of applying. That's major. Right now, I'm mentoring a couple of teachers on the mainland for their presidential award in science teaching. And I can tell you that while they both have like 7 to 10 years of experience, their practice is not much better than a lot of you guys. So it's just somebody nominated them and they feel obligated to go through the hoops. And what both of them have said to me is that, wow, I never realized how bad my teaching really looked until I started to watch it. And so their practice is becoming better simply because they're becoming more reflective. And that's kind of the goal of the whole process. And any of these opportunities, like the School of Rock or Polar Trek or Teacher at Sea, the application material you fill out makes you look at your own teaching. And that in itself is a reward. So it's something to think about. Okay, any questions about the presentations? You guys did great. I will post the electronic links to the Google Docs, as well as the 2 PowerPoints that I received. I will post those. I'll put that into a resource folder for this week. Or actually, I'll put it into children's literature and the in resources. Let me look. I have it right here. In resources for your class, if it does, there is a folder that's called Children's Literature for Science Instruction, and within there There's a folder that says past children's literature and science presentation examples, and then there'll be one for spring 2021. So I'll just put those in there, okay? All right, so what we're gonna do, you're gonna do this week is, and it was kind of interesting that we touched on it, is that we're gonna be looking at a third grade human genetics and inherited traits activity. And so you should have a big packet of papers that are in your bin, and somewhere in that packet is going to be a sheet that looks like this and like that on the back. I don't know how far down it is, but I know it's in there. And if you don't find it, you'll have a copy of it, trust me. I mean, I'll make sure that you get a copy of it. Anybody? Hey, at least one of you found it. I did put it in there. Amazing. Okay. Was it in a big stack of stuff that was like paper clipped together?
Yeah, it was with the children's literature assignment.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, in the
So,
paper set.
all right. Okay. Well, at least one of you got it. That's always good. That means the others, it's in there somewhere. All right. So thank goodness. Okay, so you should have a little bag of pennies somewhere in your stuff as well. You're gonna need, you can use one or you can use two. If you use two, you only have to toss once. If you use one, you got to toss twice. It's really quite simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to, I would imagine you all understand that the moms and the dads each contribute half of the genetics to a kid, right? You get that? Okay. So we have, each of us produces gametes, and the gametes provide half, they're haploid cells. They provide half of the genetic material that is needed to create a human in our cases. And one, you have a possibility, the parents have a possibility of providing a dominant allele, in other words, a gene that is going to express, or a gene that is recessive, the allele is not going to express. And so what we're going to represent is the head on the penny is going to represent the dominant, and the tail is going to represent the recessive. And so if you have when you're gonna have, because you can't do this together. I mean, it's great if you have a child at home who will help you, or a significant other, or a friend or somebody that's around. You can make a baby with them if you want to. This is such middle school stuff. I'm sorry. I taught 7th grade long enough that this was never my favorite. It was always kind of, I'd go home and I'd shake my head because the kids would get my brain. But what we're going to do is you're going to be filling out this table. Okay. And so you're going to determine the genetics of the baby by flipping a coin. And it's, if the coin lands head up, it's going to be a female. And if it lands tail up, it's going to be, it's just one coin, it's going to be a male. Because males have one X, which is dominant, and one Y, which is recessive. And if you actually, and I have the images, and I could probably dig them up somewhere, but if you actually look at a Y chromosome, it's actually about half the size of an X chromosome. And so it's basically, it's a little mini, it's it's quite interesting. I mean, I'm making an exaggeration here, but an X chromosome is about that big and a Y chromosome is about that big. And the stuff that's missing is what makes a guy a guy. They're not perfect. We're not perfect. I will be the first to admit that males are not perfect. Females have 2 X chromosomes. Genetically, that's what you're supposed to have. If you got a little shriveled up one, you're not a female, you're a male. That's what makes us male, is that we didn't get all the right stuff, which is okay because then we can make more kids, but in essence, it's kind of an interesting thing. So when you decide to get down to filling out this table, what some students do is that they use a capital R for the capital D for dominant and a lowercase d for recessive, or a capital R for dominant and a lowercase r for recessive. That's fine, but each of these expressions, these genes, has got its own letter, or a letter and a number. And so for the first one, for face shape, the letter is R. If you roll 2 pennies, one parent is the father, one parent is the mother, and one parent contributes either a big R or a little r, and the other parent a big R or a little r. And so you're actually going to take your pennies, and it's going to be random. And I got one big R and one little r, and it doesn't matter which one's which in here, but I'm going to say the gene from the mom is the big R and the gene from the dad is the little r, and that the genotype is going to be big R, little r. That's the gene expression. The phenotype, that's what it looks like. That's going to be found on the back. Okay. And the phenotype is, for the shape face, is going to be big R, little r, which is round. You have any, and then if you have 2 little r, if you're little r, it's square is the shape. So if you have either parent contributes the dominant trait, your face is round. That's what it says. So you're going to fill out this side with the genotypes that you roll, with the phenotypes that you get off of this table back here. Then you're going to take one of the blank sheets of paper that I gave you, and you're going to draw the face, just the face of your child that you have here. Your child is probably not going to be beautiful unless you're really a good artist. Okay. Do you have to physically draw like with a pencil or a pen? The answer is no. I have had students that do these on their iPad or with a, artsy thing. That's fine. But what you're going to need to turn in is this data table and the drawing. Okay, that's what you're going to submit. And then there'll be also an STA web activity too. Does that make sense? Okay, it's going to be due next Monday. What we're going to do next Monday, because we have spring break on the 15th, everybody should say, yay, right? I'm going to be giving you we're going to do in class a couple of engineering challenges. And I would like you should have some skewers in your one of your bags, bamboo skewers in there. They're about that long. I want you to see if you can find some wheels that will fit on that skewer. Little plastic wheels. If you can't find any, let me know this week, because I have wheels that will fit. Because we're going to make balloon-powered race cars or you're going to make balloon powered race cars, and you're going to have wheels. I normally do them in here in class, and we make our wheels out of styrofoam, out of the styrofoam on the meat trays that you have. But it can be a real challenge when you're doing that with kids. And so I actually bought 100 wheels, and they're all the same. And so they didn't come until after you guys got your boxes. And so that's why they aren't in there. But I have some green wheels that if you can't find anything by, let's say, Wednesday this week, let me know, and I'll put wheels in the lab where you came and got your bins, and you can pick up your wheels in there. So you don't have to like come at a specific time. I'll just have the lab open, okay? And then we'll make you may have to make the skewers fit the wheels, but it'll work, okay? And then we're gonna build we're gonna build styrofoam cars next week. You're going to build gliders next week. You're going to make paper helicopters next week. And you're going to build a real quick, everybody should have a catapult, 2 different catapult kits. One of them is this one, the easy catapult. And we're going to make that in class. And then over spring break, you're going to be building your wood catapult, which looks like this. Okay. And there's glue. I gave you glue for this. All right. This takes about, well, when you make it, you can't make it, you could make it in one day if you spent the whole day making it, because you got to wait for the glue to dry, and that takes 15-20 minutes for each step. And so what I did was I made mine over 4 days. Basically, it took 4 hours to make it, but I'd work on it, let it dry, and the next day I'd come back and fiddle on it for 15-20 minutes, and let it dry and then fiddle on it. So it doesn't take a lot of time, really. It's just it takes time because you got to wait for it to dry. And then what you're going to do with the clay, I gave you a clay ball. You're going to take that clay ball and you're going to actually launch the clay ball across the floor in your house or garage or on your driveway or sidewalk or wherever. I would encourage you not to launch it on carpet, only because the clay will stick into the carpet and then you'll be unhappy. Okay, and I don't want you to be unhappy. I want you to be happy. Be happy. So you're gonna do an activity with the truly elementary version, and then you're gonna do an activity with the more middle schooly version, the secondary middle school version. And that's because I want you to have the model for yourself, so that you can show the students the more sophisticated one that really looks like what you would have built back in the medieval times. So, all right. So, do you have any questions for me before I let you go? You guys got it? You're all good? I'll put out, just in case the decision is that you need wheels, I will put wheels out tomorrow morning, so that if you need wheels, just email me. If you find some wheels you want, or you go online and you're like, well, I can make them out of CDs because nobody uses a DVD player anymore or whatever, that'd be great. Or if you have a remote control car that's got wheels, or a plastic toy that's got wheels and it's broken, whatever works. Or just come and say, I'm going to come get wheels from you, Dr. Jones, and I'll put them out. But I will put them out anyway. But I just want to know. And that way you'll have them ready for when we do the activity together on Monday next week. Okay? All right. Take care, you guys. You did good. I will get the recording posted for you, and it takes a while for it to download and everything. And then it'll be a link, I think, through to Google Docs or something like that, because it's too big of a file. So, okay. All right. Have a great one. We'll see you. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
you guys.